Hi, I'm Denise Paris, co-founder of Hip About Health. And a lot of people ask us, what does Hip About Health mean? Now, HIP means that you're hopeful, that you're informed, that you're prayerful, and you're proactive about your health. Are you hip about your health?
I'm Joy, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa Prophet, and I'm hip about my health.
I am Gail, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Melissa and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Tony Stewart and I'm hip about my health.
I'm Stacy and I'm hip about my health.
I'm Khadija and I'm hip about my health.
I am Sandra and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Chandel Gums and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Alison Chester and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Marcia Rose, and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Dwayne Paris, and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Desiree Edgel, and I'm hip about my health.
I am Natasha, and I am hip about my health.
I am Charlene Prince, and I am hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Gunrad, and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Carly, and I'm hip about my health.
Our next speaker basically helps sum up the very basis of Hip About Health and what what our foundation or what our movement is based on, and that is our very own, who is part of our strategy team, Pastor Kevin.
God bless you. How
There
you doing?
You are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes. Pastor Kevin Dawkins has been he has been a supporter of our HIP Foundation. He's now on our strategy team, and he's going to be talking, giving us the bit about what God says about our health, and I'll let him explain more. But right over to you, Kevin. Thank you very much for joining us.
God bless you, and God bless you all. And it has been another fantastic Hip About Health conference. Terry, amazing. It's just been amazing. So everything that's been done, I resisted doing the exercises because I didn't want to work up a sweat. So but I did go for the gyms are closed, as many of you will know, in the UK. So I did go for a power walk this morning, and the outside gyms were quite packed up. So I had my power walk. I came back and had my healthy smoothie. So I am raring to go tonight. And thank you to all of you that have tuned in and are still tuned in. It's been amazing, and I'm not honored, Denise, that you would consider me to be a part of the Hip About Health movement. And to all of you that work behind the scenes, God bless you. To Dwayne and all of you, God bless you all. Now, as just going to check my watch to see how long I've got right. I'm a preacher, so preachers can go on a long time. So I'm going to be respectful of the time. And as Denise said, I'm on the board, but my history in very brief is I'm founder and senior pastor of Faith Tabernacle Church. I founded that ministry 17 years ago. But prior to that, when I was 16 years of age, in school, in fact, younger than that, I actually started doing martial arts. And martial arts led me to go into weight training. Weight training led me to go into bodybuilding. I actually was training to enter competition. So there was a point in my time when I was actually training to the point where I wanted to compete in bodybuilding competition. I didn't actually compete because I didn't want to take steroids, because most bodybuilders in those days, they were taking steroids, and I didn't want to take steroids. So I stayed away from it. But I continued to work out, had a very successful career as a salesman. And then just before I got married, I decided that I didn't want to continue being a salesman. So I thought, what do I want to do? I said, I love working out. When I was in the gyms, loads of people would ask me for advice about how to do this and how to do that. So I quit my sales job and went off to the YMCA and became a qualified fitness instructor. And then I embarked on a career where I worked in gyms for 4 years. My final gym position was managing a gym. In fact, I was managing 2 gyms and I had 15 staff working underneath me. So that was my earlier years. In between all of that, God showed up. And those of you that know God, God showed up with a vengeance and changed everything. Having been raised in a household that believed in God, but I didn't go to church. When I got married 23 years ago, and I'm still happily married to this day, I didn't want to get married in church. I completely rejected the church. I used every single argument that you've ever used or you've ever heard, discounting the validity of the church and discounting Christianity. I used every argument, and then God intervened in a very dynamic and supernatural way and turned my life around. I became a Christian. I got hungry for the word of God. I pursued the word of God with a passion. 2.5 years after giving my life to Christ, God spoke to me and says, I want you to preach my word. In other words, I want you to lead a church. I thought, God, you're crazy. I don't want to do that, number one. And number two, why on earth are you using me? And then 4.5 years after I became a believer, God told me to leave my church, leave my career, and start a church. And that's what I'm doing to this day. But along the way, the Lord spoke to me again about health and wellness. And it's something, and he spoke to me specifically to speak to the church. Now, that is possibly going to be the toughest audience to talk to, because we, for some inexplicable reason, in my earlier years of Christianity, my earlier years of walking with a health and wellness ministry, I couldn't understand why the church was so reticent towards health and wellness. You know, we'll run to a healing crusade and we go to church and we're looking for someone to testify about how God healed them of cancer and supernatural. But there was for some reason we were not actually taking care of our own health. It's interesting. Whilst I am watching everything that's going on, there is a funeral service taking place right now in Dominica, and it's of a young man who I know. So I realized there was a real reticence towards the health and wellness message within the church. People didn't seem to be interested in it. And the Bible is absolutely replete with information about health and wellness. And something that I always say to people, I heard a great man of God say this, that whenever you move away from the original purpose for a thing, it becomes open to abuse. And God gave us a template of how we are to do things, but we have deviated away from it. And the moment you deviate away from the original purpose for a thing, again, as I said earlier, it becomes open to abuse. So we have now gone away in many instances from God's original plan for us, and particularly as it pertains to diet and nutrition and health and wellness. So just a few little facts. I haven't prepared a presentation. I'm a preacher. I should be able to keep you focused on me as I speak. And I also want to say this, if you're on here and you're not a Christian, you don't believe in the Bible, the information in the Bible is still sound and factual. I had a very dear friend of mine who's now passed away, gone on to be with the Lord. And he was a medical doctor in the United States of America, and he was doing very, very well in his medical practice. When he was 8 years of age, his mother, for his Christmas, all his siblings got toys and games. For his 8th birthday, he was given a Bible and a medical journal. And he was furious with his mum and dad, but he went on to be a very successful medical doctor in United States of America, but he always had the biblical foundation. So like what Paul Taylor was saying, that we need to give people the truth about health and wellness from a natural perspective. We need to give them the truth. And he did that from the Bible perspective. But he also says, if you didn't want to listen to the Bible perspective, you can come and see me wearing my white coat and pay me $150 an hour, and I will happily look after you. But either way, I have the information. So, the Bible is, so if you don't believe in the Bible, you don't believe in Christianity, the Bible still has some foundational facts and truth that are relevant to this day. So, and it speaks quite strongly about health and wellness. So if you look, for example, there are 274 verses in the King James Version which use the word meat, and that it translates as the word food. There's 274 verses. The first time we see anything to do with food is in Genesis chapter 1, which is the very first book, very first chapter of the beginning of the Bible. There are 583 verses containing the word eat in the Bible, and 455 of those are in the Old Testament. The first time the Bible mentions the word food is in Genesis 2:9. The first time it mentions the word eat is in Genesis 2, in the terms of specifically about eating things. And we know that the book of Leviticus sets out the Old Testament dietary laws. So what we have to realize is that what we eat is important to God, because he sets out telling us what to eat from the very, very beginning. In fact, after God creates humans, the first thing he tells the human after he blesses the human is what to eat. That's the first thing he does. It's quite amazing. You look at Genesis 1:29, he blesses the human being, and then he tells them what to eat. And interestingly, in verse number 30, the next verse, he tells the animals what to eat. So clearly, nutrition is important to God, clearly. And he's very specific in terms of what he says to eat. He says to the human being, I've given you every herb that yields seed, and also trees whose fruits yield seed. So it's very specific as to what we should eat. And again, in Genesis 1:30, he tells the animals what they should eat, every green herb for food. Now, this is an interesting one. I was watching a program a couple of years ago, a fascinating program about New York City. And, different people like different places in the world. I like New York City. In fact, I was there last year. And this documentary was about how New York City works. And one of the things that New York City is famous for is steak. But clearly it's a city. It doesn't have any green land to cultivate cows. But we know upstate New York, they have cattle farms there, but the majority of the meat is coming from the central and the Midwest of the United States of America. And one of the things that they were speaking to one of the cattle farmers was, he was saying that the cows there was 3 things that the cows loved to eat. And 2 of them, one of them was breakfast cereal and the other one was chocolate. So they were feeding cows breakfast cereal and chocolate, on top of all of the antibiotics and all the hormonal drugs that they're giving them to fatten them up artificially. When God in his word told the animals, you must eat the herbs for food. So it's interesting that God speaks at the very, very outset of the creation of humanity. He tells us what to eat. So clearly it is important to God. And likewise, it should then clearly be important to us. So as we move on, it's interesting that we then see God move tact slightly. We know Genesis chapter 1 gives us the overview of creation. We know that Genesis chapter 2 gives us a little specificity of creation. And we now know in Genesis chapter 3, that is the introduction of the fall of man, when man rebels against God. And that's where the beginning of the trouble starts. You move away from the original purpose for a thing, and we can see the chaos that the world is in right now. And so when the human being sinned, God spoke to the male of the human species. And he says, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you. So it's interesting that sin entered through what we eat. That's quite interesting. As a Christian, we think about sin entering, but it came into the human DNA from what we ate. They ate the fruit, and eating introduced sin. Interesting. So then God says, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. So here we go again, where sin entered in by what we eat, and eating would be now something that we would do all in toil all the days of our life. And then he goes on in verse number 18 of Genesis 3. He says, both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth, which is the earth, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. So now this is the first time we see something that we can eat that is not grown from the ground. And so now we have the introduction of all sorts of strife, because we're now eating things that have no, some of the food items that I see on my shelf in my supermarket, when you look at the ingredients, there's no food in the ingredient. It's quite amazing. I was showing somebody a very famous and well-known cake brand in the United States of America. It begins with the letter T, and simple, and when you look at the sell-by date on it, you put it on your shelf, and the sell-by date is like 15 years time. So clearly that's not food. So we can see that food is hugely important to God, and as a result of our falling away from God and our moving away from his original template of nutrition, we have fallen so far away that we're now suffering. The church suffers from diabetes. When I hear Christians say, I've got diabetes, and those of you that walk around any ministry where it talks about being a man or a woman of faith, you don't say anything. You don't claim anything. You don't claim sickness on your body. You claim that you're healed by God's stripes. So people are saying, I've got diabetes, I've got high blood pressure. I heard somebody say that high blood pressure runs in the family. And I heard somebody say, actually, high blood pressure doesn't run in your family. What runs in your family is poor nutrition and a lack of movement and exercise. That's what runs in your family. So therefore, you now are all suffering from the same thing, because you're all eating the same diet and you're all living relatively sedentary lives. And so we can see that God is interested in our bodies. Why is this so important? And this is really where I want to get to the crux of what I'm saying today, for those of you that are Christian, but is also relevant if you are not. As Christians, we know that we are in a spiritual battle. We're waging a war with the enemy. And when you become a Christian, the Bible uses this term, Jesus uses this term, says you are born again. So you are born of the Spirit and the water, you are born again. And as he was speaking to Nicodemus in John chapter 3, Nicodemus was saying, I'm a big grown man. How can I re-enter my mother's womb? He said, no, this is a spiritual new birth. So when you are born again, when you become a Christian, your spirit is pure, your spirit is reconnected to God, your spirit is holy, and your spirit is untouchable by the enemy. It's untouchable. The enemy cannot touch your spirit when you are a child of God, when you've given your life to Jesus Christ. The enemy cannot touch your spirit, but what he can touch is your physical body. So that's exactly what he will do. So if you think about those of you that know the story of Job, Satan comes before God and says, God says, what are you doing here? And then God says to Satan, I'm going around trying to destroy the world, but I'm not getting success, or I am getting success. But so God says to him, have you considered my servant Job? And then they have a conversation, and then God says, you can, all right, then go after Job, but you cannot take his life. Now, the reason why God could say that was because he knew that the spirit part of Job was absolutely pure, and the spirit part of Job would win through in the end. So even when Job put physical boils and physical infirmity on him, the spirit part of him stood strong. And so what the enemy wants us to do is move away from our spiritual perspective tackle us with our health, give us infirmity, give us sicknesses, get us to say things like, I've got this and I've got that, which denies the work of faith in our life to then get us to get to that place of healing. But not only if it's not supernatural healing, but it is the healing that comes from information. The information that I've heard this afternoon, particularly from Terry and Paul Taylor, because it's on a technical level and it's stuff that I already know, but that information will change my life. Now, I don't need to be spiritual for that information to change my life. But if I understand that health and wellness also includes your spirit and your soul, you will then understand that it's vital that we combine the three. Health and wellness is about being healthy and well in body, soul, and spirit. I know some amazing people who look fantastic. They look young, they look fit, they look healthy, but their soul and their spirit is horrible. We all know people like that. Or you know somebody who's got a beautiful spirit. You say that person's got such a lovely spirit, but they are trapped in a body of infirmity and affliction. I knew an awesome preacher years ago, amazing preacher of the gospel, amazing missionary. He would travel to Africa and minister, but he would come to our church with walking sticks. He couldn't stand up through the whole service. And when he came up to preach, he would have to hold on to the platform to preach. And then he'd have to sit in his wheelchair afterwards. And eventually his physical infirmities took his life. His spirit man could preach up a storm, but physically. So we need to take care of the physical man so that we can maximize the power of the spirit man. Let me say that again. We need to take care of the physical man so that we can maximize the power of the spirit man. And again, if you are a business person, you could be, if we look at, I use Steve Jobs as an example, the founder of Apple, co-founder of Apple, an incredible visionary, created one of the biggest companies in the world of Apple, passed away at 56. His physical body could not live any longer and he died at 56. So we have to realize that as brilliant as he was, as brilliant as he is, his physical body let him down, if I use that term. So, and as Christians, it is vital because as we know in the book of Ephesians, the Bible says our fight is not against flesh and blood. We're not fighting against people. We're not fighting against political parties. We are fighting a spiritual battle. And it's a spiritual battle that we were created to win in Christ. But if we do not have a body that can also perform on the earth in conjunction with our spirit, we will have a problem. And again, as I say, health and wellness is about spirit, soul, and body. When we look at what was said earlier on, we know that exercise releases endorphins, and endorphins are good for you. They help you. They make you a better person. So there is so much that has been said that complements everything. When we listen to what Terry was saying about micronutrients, God says eat fruit and eat green stuff. And then he says to the animals, you only eat the green stuff. So now, as Terry said in her slides, that, we can get macronutrients out of proteins from red meat. There are all those out there saying, oh, we shouldn't eat meat. Oh, we shouldn't eat meat. The reality is, if the animals that we are eating ate what God told them to eat, and if we put less pollutants and chemicals into the atmosphere, the meat that we eat would be healthy, because even Jesus ate meat. So there is nothing wrong with eating meat. It's just that it has to be the pure source. And I know a question was asked earlier on, how do we know that the seed that we are sowing is actually healthy? But these are the things that we have to then, as I think Paul Taylor said, is do your research in where you're buying the products from. So we can see, sorry, just getting my notes back up here. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20, or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own. So this body is not mine. It belongs to God. So therefore I need to honor God by taking care of my body. For you were bought at a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God. So God is telling me that my body and my spirit belong to him. So therefore, I must honor him by taking care of it. A lot of people say, I don't have the time to exercise. Well, I watched our brother earlier, Leon. Was it Leon? Is that your name? No, Lance, sorry. I knew it was an L. Apologies, Lance. I watched Lance do a workout in his living room. Now, when I did my health and wellness, when I did my fitness qualification, I was trained to train people to exercise without gym equipment. So that's how I was trained. So people say, you know, I can't remember, his colleague said, you know, when you sit down and stand up, that you can use that as an exercise. When you're walking up and down the stairs, you can use that as an exercise. There are so many things that we can do that can be effective, and it's a whole health approach. And so we've got to realize, and again, if I speak to those that are Christian on here, you've got to realize that God needs you to fight a spiritual battle, and the spiritual battle you were created to win. But the challenge is that if your body is weak, if it's sick, if it's infirmed, it is much, much harder for you to fight that physical battle. We see that when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he told the 3 disciples, I'm going to go and pray. I need you to come and pray with me, but you stay here and I'll go over there and I'll pray. And then he comes back to them, finds them asleep. And he says, what, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak. And so it lets me know that for me to minimize my weak flesh from affecting my spiritual journey, I've got to take care of this flesh to the best of my ability. I've got to use the information that Lance gave us in terms of movement and physical exercise. I've got to use the information that Terry gave us about micronutrients. And I've got to use the information that Paul Taylor gave about letting us understand the narrative that is being sold to us is effectively a lie. And then we renew our mind, as the Bible says, with the truth of natural medicine and macronutrients and exercise, and also getting enough sleep, also having positive people around. I got excited when Denise invited me to be a speaker. I got excited to know that Paul Taylor was coming back and Terry was coming. I got excited because I know I'm going to hear some stuff that's going to stir me up. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go downstairs and tell my wife what I've learned. I'm going to pass that information on. And so what HIPP is doing is tremendous. And wherever you are in the world watching this, you need to grab the information for yourself, realize it for yourself, and you need to go out there and share it with other people. And remember that as Christians, the world needs the light of Christ like never before. The US elections, the lockdown, the impending Brexit, which is coming on the 1st of January, economic and political turmoil around the world. The world needs the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ like never before. And it needs us as Christians to be healthy and well in body, soul, and spirit. And so what we've got to do is recognize that it is vitally important. The responsibility for me taking care of this body rests with me. I have to take care of it. I've got to make sure that my soul is restored. We could have talked about that for another hour. When David writes, he restores my soul. A lot of the problems that we have, the emotions, the hurts, the pain, the abuse, the rejection, that's in our soul that needs to be healed. We need soul restoration, because when you restore your soul and your spirit is well with the Lord and your body is healthy and well, you are living in the totality of what Jesus came when he says, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly, have it to the full, another version says. And that's what I live. I live life to the full. Apart from the gray hair, I've been rebuking the gray hair for the last 10 years and it's just staying gray. It's not working. I'm laying hands on myself and saying, in the name of Jesus, go back to being black, and it's not working. So I've just resigned myself that to keep it cut as low as possible. My barber is shut now, or just to make the rest of me live and exude the glory of God, so that my gray hair doesn't make me look old. And although it's not a problem, so we've got to use what we've learned today and use what HIP is promoting and preaching, so that we can be the salt and the light in the world, because that is what the world needs. It needs to see us as believers living healthy and well. It needs to see us as believers living the full life, the abundant life that Jesus died on the cross for us to have. With, you know, our destination ultimately is heaven, but we are still here because we have a message that the world needs to hear. And we've got to do it as effectively as possible with a healthy countenance, both physically and mentally and spiritually. So I want to encourage you, because as I say, I'm a preacher and I'm going to stop now because I could go on, that Jesus said this: the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Go back to the original plan of God. Go back to what he said in his word and use that as a foundation with all the tremendous information that you've heard this afternoon, this evening, and you build on that, and you will see not only your life transformed, but you'll see your family life transformed, and you will see your church's life transformed, and you will see people who do not know Jesus want to know, what is it about you? Why are you always so positive? Why do you look so healthy? Why do you look so young? Why do you look so effervescent? And you'll tell them it's Jesus. And that will be so attractive to them. They might walk away, but some of them will think, no, I want that because I'm not happy. And so God bless you. And over to you, Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise Paris, co-founder of HIPP About Health. And a lot of people ask us, what does HIPP About Health mean? Now, HIPP means that you're hopeful, that you're informed, that you're prayerful, and you're proactive about your health. Are you hip about your health?
I'm Joy, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa Prophet and I'm hip about my health.
I am Gail, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Melissa and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Tony Stewart, and I'm hip about my health.
I'm Stacy, and I'm hip about my health.
I'm Khadija, and I'm hip about my health.
I am Sandra, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Chandel Gums, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Alison Chester, and I'm hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Marsha Rose, and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Dwayne Paris, and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Desiree Edgel, and I'm hip about my health.
I am Natasha, and I am hip about my health.
I am Charlene Prince, and I am hip about my health.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Gunrad and I'm hip about my health.
My name is Carly, and I'm hip about my health.